Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz vocalist Bill Kwan. He is also a professional dermatologist, and he talked about his life in jazz and the release of his latest 2021 CD, No Ordinary Love. It's his fifth album. He delves deeply into the songbook of one of the 20th century's most popular female singers. He will explain. He is joined by a New York dream team distinguished by deep connections to both the city's jazz scene and the innovative singer-songwriters. As we mentioned, he is a dermatologist with a solo practice in San Francisco, and he's honed his craft at many of the Bay Area's leading jazz venues. Get to know him. Enjoy.
Good. Thanks for taking a minute out.
Oh, sure. No, this worked out perfect for me.
Let's start off and talk about No Ordinary Love. Talk to me a little bit about, this is your fifth album, and I want to know, it's coming out during a pandemic in a very strange time. What are your thoughts on the timing of this release?
Well, we thought a lot about it. I actually recorded this and completed the album last March. So I was in New York right before the COVID outbreak in New York City. And so I was there beginning of February, and then, basically everything started to become an issue starting in March. Normally I would have released it probably October last year. I kind of assembled my team, and we all kind of agreed to wait until the spring to come out with it. So, it's hard to predict. Nobody really knew it would last this long and when it would be done. So we thought things might be, getting better by early next year. And, we started to plan this last November in terms of when to release. So it's difficult because you can't really do any live performance to support the project. I'm hoping to be able to do some shows, summer or in the fall. Hopefully when live music is comfortable for everybody to attend, as well as for clubs to feel comfortable with whatever guidelines are at that point.
So talk to me a little bit about this album, covering these songs and kind of how you feel about how everything came together.
I think that the album has come together really beautifully. It was the first time I worked with full string section and had real arrangements done. So the process was very different than the previous albums. Matt and I started to work on material, probably 8 months before we even decided on which songs to do. And he and I both listened to her whole catalog, and we kind of narrowed it down slowly over about 6 months. I would obviously only do songs that I felt that were personal or that the lyrics spoke to me in some form. Because her music is very specific to Sade, and I have so much respect for her in terms of the longevity of her career, and as well as her having created her own sound, that I can't think of anybody that could quite emulate her to the same degree that she has been able to identify herself as an artist. I'm very proud of the project, and I think I have such a fantastic group of musicians, artists on the album. Yeah, so I think it turned out really, really, really well.
What do you ultimately want the listener to get from this experience? How do you want them to feel about what you're putting out there artistically?
Well, the most important thing for me, just in terms of what I try to convey with my vocals, is kind of an intimacy, different from what Sade does. Because again, I think that Sade has such an intimate sound to her voice as well as to her arrangements whenever she comes out with anything. And so we wanted to create that kind of intimacy, concentrate on the lyrics. I'm hoping that the listener really can feel that connection, that subtlety with what we were trying to do with the tracks.
So talk to me about how all of these interests of yours, you're a dermatologist, you're a vocalist, talk to me a little bit about your childhood, exactly where you were born and raised, and kind of how all of these things came together for you.
Well, I was born in Los Angeles. And when I was about 5 years old, we moved down to Orange County, to Irvine. And so I pretty much grew up there, and that's where I kind of view as my hometown being. And I was singing at a very young age. I was in choir in elementary school, middle school, and we always performed. And once I got into high school, I knew I wanted to go into medicine. My dad's a physician, and it was always something that I felt very strongly about pursuing. I felt very strongly about in terms of helping others. And so I really concentrated on that. And so the whole artistic side of my life kind of dropped away. And up until I was, 26, it was just one thing after another, high school, college, medical school, and then residency. And, before I knew it, I was in my early 30s. And then I moved to San Francisco. And once I kind of got my career established, I felt that I wanted to pursue music again. Sought out Kitty Margolis, and I studied with Kitty for several years, predominantly on repertoire, and then got involved at the jazz school in Berkeley and worked with Wayne Wallace and Laurie Antonioli. Did some seminars, Gretchen Parlato, Becca Stevens. Worked with Theo Bleckman a little bit during one of the summer intensive courses that they do there, and through all of that, I started to perform more and recorded my first album, and then I got connected with Matt Pearson, and so the last 3 projects I've done with Matt, and he's been a huge influence on me and my music, and I've been very, very fortunate to have developed a relationship with. I have so much respect for Matt, and as well as his skills as a producer.
So who are some early jazz artists that you were listening to that really got you motivated to want to pursue jazz?
Probably the most important, actually a couple important singers. Probably Ella Fitzgerald, who was still performing when I was, high school, college. And so every time she performed at the Hollywood Bowl, I would go see her. And I was fortunate enough to see her the last time she performed there. She was very impactful on me. Whenever I'm learning a standard, I always go back and listen to her, just to get an idea of her interpretation of it. Also, Shirley Horn. Shirley Horn is, again, with her, there's so much subtlety in her singing, as well as with her musicianship. I was really fortunate to meet her. I met her at Yoshi's backstage, and I think it was the last time she performed there, and I got an autographed album from her. It was really great to spend some time with her and meet her. So those are out of the jazz singers. Also, Cleo Lane, when she was performing, I saw her perform live several times. Yeah, and I've been really inspired by a lot of female singers. Joni Mitchell, of course. I'm glad that the jazz community has embraced her music and has really re-recorded and reinvented her catalog with jazz sensibilities, although I think Joni Mitchell always had that jazz sensibility, or has that jazz sensibility. So I think those are the most important singers. In terms of men, Kurt Elling, I wish I could sing like him a lot of times because he's so talented and so technical. Gregory Porter. So those are probably the singers that I find most inspiring to me in terms of jazz music.
So how do you distinguish between your life as a dermatologist and a jazz vocalist? What do you do? Do your patients know? How do you kind of mold those worlds together?
I pretty much keep them very separate. Some of my patients know about my music, but it's not something I typically advertise to them. Oftentimes, if I'm seeing somebody in my office, I'll bring up that I have an album coming out soon, and they're usually very surprised. My day job is very demanding. I wish it weren't sometimes, because then it'd allow me more time to pursue music. But likewise, being able to self-fund myself and support my music and be able to do projects that I would like to do at the time I'd like to do them is really important too. So my professional career, being a doctor, really does allow me the ability to be a self-financed artist and to be able to do artistically what I'd like to do. So they're mutually beneficial, both of them.
What do you look forward to the most about being a professional musician? What is it that inspires and motivates you the most doing that?
Two things. First of all, working with other artists, other musicians, is always inspiring, because the great thing about jazz music is every time you do a song or performance, it's different. Even if you're with the same four people, it's always different, because the improvisation is what really is exciting for, I think, all of us when we're doing a live gig. Also, and actually some of the happiest times of my life have been when I've been performing, when everything's just clicking and you just feel that there's this energy where you all feel that, yeah, what we're doing is really coming together, and it feels really great. Also, being able to perform in front of an audience is really inspiring to me, and, seeing people, connect with my music. Obviously, that's why we put things out there, is we want to express ourselves and be artistic, but we also, I think we all want to have a certain degree of people understanding what we're doing, and that they absorb it and feel it and interpret it through their own life. So I think those are the two things that inspire me the most about music and performing.
So why do you love jazz?
Well, it goes back to my love of just hearing standards. There's some of the most beautiful songs ever written, and complicated songs. The intervals with what the musicians have to play, where the melody goes, is very challenging. I was exposed to jazz at a very young age. My mom used to play old swing albums like Benny Goodman, and then she used to play Herb Alpert and even Mantovani. And so I grew up hearing this music in the background all the time. And as I got older, I predominantly listened to jazz vocalists, all the time. Obviously, I listened to all types of music, but that's where my appreciation for jazz came. Basically from the songbook, as well as being exposed to a lot of vocalists at a very young age.
So when we do return to the jazz world, you get on stage, I'm in the crowd, all of us collectively. What do you hope we all realize about the power of live music when we return after this long absence away?
Gosh, I think that in so many aspects of our lives, we have a much greater appreciation for just the things that we took for granted. Being able to connect with the music on a very intimate scale. I know I truly miss being able to have a communal experience with my friends, or with even just strangers, where we are all experiencing something at the same time, but we all experience it very differently. I think that's what I think I miss, and I think that's what most people in my life miss. Just being able to have that shared experience, and hopefully, when it comes back, the people will really support these clubs and bars and establishments that have been really struggling, with hopes that they can kind of carry on. Because I think one of the saddest things that I've seen is, a lot of the closures that we've seen, especially here in the Bay Area. So I'm hoping that sector of the artistic community will really rally and support those local establishments to reinvigorate them, and to kind of get that artistic musical community back up and running.
So everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, patients. Everyone in your life does, but you live your life. Who do you think you are?
Wow, that's a difficult question. I think, like any of us, we're all multiple different people at different times of the day. I think that prior to me really devoting, and I've been actively recording and performing for probably the past 10 years. Prior to that, I feel that I was a little bit closed off, because for what I do as a doctor, you really need to be fairly clinical, very serious all day. And through music, I've learned to really express myself a lot more and to be a more vulnerable, a more kinder, a more affectionate person. And so I feel that I've done all the things in my life that I'd like to do at this point, where I'm very fortunate to say that. So, gosh, I don't know if I'm quite answering the question, but I'm so many different things on so many different levels, as well as in the roles that I play in my life. But I think most of us are that way. If you're a parent and you're a child and who you are at work. So I think I'm pretty much like everybody in that respect.
That's the answer I'm looking for. Bill, thank you for opening up about your life and music, about the new album. Good luck with the album and the return to the stage.
Oh, great. Thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks for the time.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest singers in San Francisco, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Bill for his time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Child of mine,
Neon Jazz.